Richard. Thank you everyone for turning up tonight. My name's Robin Campbell. Like Richard said, I'm Investor Relations for the Coin Group based in Bristol.
So this pub here is in the Midlands. I grew up in the Midlands. And this was run by a local gangster. And nobody could get to this pub. It was repossessed and even the bailiffs couldn't get it. Right? I got a phone call from the guy, one of the guys I know who works in the bank. He said, would you be prepared to take on this pub? Just buy it and take it on as is. I said yes, we bought it. We went and negotiated with them and it wasn't easy. We got hold of it, we found them somewhere else to live, we moved them on, and that's what we got planning on it, right? And it was very straightforward. That's an easy deal to do. And in the meantime, just to make sure they did move out, we got all the services disconnected, so they couldn't stay there anyway. That's how we've done that deal. We've developed sites where there's been a terrace of houses, there's been an old allotment in the back, it's been there for years, everyone's looked out on it, and we go in and we want to develop it, we want to put 5 houses on it. All hell breaks loose, right? All hell breaks loose, right? So the first thing I do is I send the lads in. It might be right, might be wrong in people's eyes, but I send my lads in and they normally go in on Christmas Eve, right? And they clear the site. So then everyone's left for work and the site's now cleared. So I now have a clear site. I have a canvas. Planners come to me and say, why did you do that? Why did you bring? But now I have a clean site. Now I can start, right? I've already sent a PR consultant in. She's gone and spoke to them, right? And it's just that softer approach. So you try and soften things, you know. I'll tell you about, you know, Robin will ask me this later and I'll tell you about this now. A deal that I've done many, many years ago. I'll never forget it. It's a very special deal, and I'll tell you why. And it was a hospital in Birmingham, and there was a couple of houses on it, and the guy that was there at the time, he was head of the estate. And we come along, we were buying these 4 houses, we were going to knock them down, and one of the things we wanted to do was build accommodation on the site for nurses for the hospital. The whole area went mad. Like you wouldn't believe. There was articles in the paper about me. I was reading profiles about me that I never knew existed, right? And everybody was onto me. So I employed a PR consultant. She went around taking everyone's names. You know, had coffee mornings in the local hall. Everything didn't work. They hated me with a passion, right? Because as far as they were concerned, we were going to come in and do all these things. The guy that worked in the hospital at the time, who was head of the estates, said to me, he said, you know, if you cut those couple of trees down, he said, you know you'd get 6 more apartments, don't you? I said, yeah, but I can't because they're conservation. But I can, he said, because there's no such thing as crown land, as a tree preservation order on crown land. And I said, why would you want to do that for us, Mark? He said, well, look, Mike, it's a bit like this. He said, I've got 2 children that are very heavily disabled. And he said, we're trying to raise enough money to buy a bus. So he said, I'm not blackmailing you, but he said, if you could help a charity that we act for, I'm about to leave because I'm going to work for the prison service for their estates department, and I'll make sure the trees are down. So I'm at home, picture this, on a Monday morning, and there's a knock on the door, and there's 2 policemen at the door. And they want to know where I've been the day before. I live in Bristol. They said, no, you've been to Birmingham and you've cut all these trees down. I said, no, I haven't. I said, while we're on the subject, I haven't exchanged on the site. We have a contract, we're ready to exchange, we're going to actually exchange today. Why? Is there a problem? We've cut all the trees. I said, no, I haven't. There's nothing anyone could do. Cut the trees down, pay the money to the charity. It all worked out. We got more, and it was only, and it wasn't me. I didn't sit down and scratch my head and think, oh, it was somebody, because I got on well with them and I communicated with them. They actually liked me. They turned around to me and suggested it, and it worked. So that's what I'm saying. And the reason it was special was because he wasn't motivated by greed. He was doing something for his own family. You know, and we actually ended up getting more on the site, and we actually ended up building it. And again, I flipped the site. I didn't even build it. So when I say we actually ended up building it, we got the site ready to build, and we got a really good offer. And we sold it to a gentleman. He bought it, he built it, and done very well out of it. And we went on and sold 2 more sites to him. So that's what can happen. And what we actually did was, that was the penthouse, and in there is, believe it's 2 floors. So when we bought it, there was only 1 flat underneath, a small little basement flat really, and we found these coal bunkers. I thought, if we open that right up, and the building's built into an enclave like that, so we got all light at the rear, and we dug out a car park at the back and put all windows in it, we ended up, that apartment was just short of 3,100 square foot when we finished, and we started off at 1,200 square foot with little pokey windows. So that's what we've done. It's top end. I'm one of my largest investors to date that I work with, and I've got a great relationship with. Didn't know I'd done this building. We've worked with them for years, and they came along one day and he said, "You know, Mike," he said, "I'm coming to retirement and I'd really like an apartment." He said, "You know, in Clifton by the bridge." And I said, "Yeah, we've just done it." And they said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, it was one of those." That's my house.
So were they were already apartments, were they? I think the question was.
No, so that was the old DVLA offices. So it's where.
Did you buy it in an auction?
No, we bought it. I bought it again through an agent I know, that I have a relationship with. I have a lot of relationships with. I'm one of these people, I say what I think. So a lot of people don't like me, and a lot of people really like me. And the people that really like me do business with me. So I know they always talk straight to me. People that don't like me, I don't do business with them, so it works. So they're the types of relationships I have with people, and I work very closely with people. So, you know, I don't get anything cheaper than anybody else. I just see an angle that somebody else hasn't seen, or I can move quicker than anybody else because I have the money, that's all. I'm not any better than anybody else in this room. It's just, I'm told about something, and I work it out in my head, I go away, Robin speaks to some of the investors, or previously, you know, it would have been my own money, and, you know, I've done it for years, and I just decided in the last recession that I wasn't going to do it anymore. You know, I looked at my family in the face when all hell broke loose with the banks, and it really did break loose, because you woke up in the morning and you owned a site that was worth 20 million, and now it's worth $1 million. And the reason it was worth $1 million was because no one wanted to buy it off you. And the bank wanted their money back. And they didn't care they got the money back, they were going to get the money back. So you had to, and I had to look at my family in the eyes and say, I'm not doing this anymore, I can't do it anymore, the stress will kill me. And that was my worst breaking point, I can honestly say. And it's amazing because through all that period, I went to see the banks myself, because I'm one of these people, I react very quickly. Went to the banks myself, sat down with them, took a very good lawyer that I worked with, and sat down with them and said, look, we want to negotiate. The bank said, no. We said, well, we do, and we want to see all the paperwork, all the loan agreements that we've signed. Believe me, there was a lot of them. We had stuff all over the country, and we sat down, piece by piece by piece. We went through every single one. We negotiated, and we bought our way out of every deal. And then I had clients coming up to me, who weren't clients at the time, saying, can you act for us? I said, what do you mean? We've got a bit of a problem. Okay. And that's how it started. And then it just got more, and people said, well, you've had your fingers burnt a few times. Can you do that for us? I said, well, what do we get out of it? You know, we charge you a fee. No, we'll give you a percentage of the profit. So I didn't lie in bed one day and just think this is what they'll do. And that's how it ended up. And 5, 6 years on from that, it's just escalated, and people come to me now. People sit down with me, talk to me, and I look at people square in the eye and I think, can I work with you? Do I like you? Do you like me? Is it going to work? And if the answer's no, I won't work with them. And Robin's seen me do that, and at the same time, they have to like me. And if we do, we make money together. We go on a journey and we make money, and that's what we do. But again, we are no different to anybody else. We have contacts, we work with people like us, people give us things. We see opportunities.
So, thank you, Mike. So, the question on here was, did we get it unconditionally?
No.
So we didn't.
But we've seen the basement potential in it, and we've seen the market changing, and we knew it was opposite the bridge, and we knew we could turn it into top end.
So it was 4, became 5 when we done that.
So why, you'll ask, are we doing this? This is what we've seen in the market. This is different to what other people are doing. So Bristol, if any of you know Bristol well, Bristol, the dynamics in Bristol has changed. It's such a small city, and property's gone mad. It's a bit like London. It's gone absolutely mad from years ago. And you've got little pockets that are left where everything around it has gone up. And you've got a lot of older people, retired people, living in these bungalows. And you've got a lot of private schools around there, and there's a lot of wealth. So we've gone in, and other people have gone in and started turning these bungalows into sizable houses. And we're doubling, in some cases we've trebled the values. So we've seen something in the market that not a lot of people have seen. That's all we're doing. There's nothing special about it, and local families are going, well, we can buy that house for 950,000, whereas if we buy a mile up the road, we're going to pay 1.5 million. And as that area changes, you won't get these opportunities. And they're in every area because it's trendy, it's fashionable, and there's areas that change. And wherever you come from, wherever you live in the country, whether it's Edinburgh, Hull, Leeds, Birmingham, there's areas that are changing. And you'll see that. You can see by the local high street, the shops, the schools, and that's how you see these opportunities. And you've just got to be a leader. You've just got to go in and identify and say and believe. You know, and one thing I've always learned about property is you've got to believe that you can create something and sell it. And once you sell it and once you see it happening, other people will follow. If you want to buy something, and let's say you want to buy this bungalow here, and you say, oh, I want to buy this, and you go in, you start negotiating, and it's older people, and you say to them, we'll bid you $425 for your bungalow, right? They go, no, I don't want it, I want $450, that's the only one. If you leave it for a while, and you see there's no one else come along, and you go back to them and say, I tell you what, I'll give you $450 for your bungalow, but I want to get planning on it. You can live in it, you can do everything, and I'll buy it, and I'll exchange with you, and I'll give you 10% deposit once I get planning, right? But I will exchange with you before, and then once I get, I'll complete within 28 days. The likelihood is, if they can't sell it, they'll do that deal with you, right? Once you've done that, you've now got your planning gain. So when you go back to the bank with that bungalow's not worth $450 anymore. It could be worth $650 depending on the area and where it is. And now you want to build this, and guess what? You've got some equity in that site to be able to build this, to be able to create that opulent house. That's the story to that.
Our architects are probably charging 20% up front, 70% when the plans have gone in, and then a final 10%.
I don't make the mistake that most people make, because most people do. They think, I can do this myself. I'll get a local planning office, use a planning consultant. Because, believe me, I've seen people all the time they do it. They go to appeal, they lose, they're dead in the water. There's no way back. And all you've done, you might as well go outside, get your money, tear it up and put it in the drain. So use a planning consultant that knows the area, make sure you do your homework, find out who's good in the area, and use a good architect. And don't design something that looks, odd and stupid. Design something that's already in the area, that's already got planning. Because you see people that go along and they design something. I mean, this house, there is other houses like that within the area. So you know, and because it's contemporary, planners like contemporary architecture. So you're more likely to get something like that. Whereas if you design something with pillars and it's like something out of a footballer's house, you won't get it.
Just out of interest, Mike took the planner and the architect to this site before we bought it, which is the kind of privilege you get when you've looked after your power team for some time. But they both stood on this site, which has risen up on the hillside with a fantastic view. So, yeah,
so I bought this unconditionally. So this site was bought unconditionally, and my investors, when they questioned me on this, when they questioned me on this, I said I looked at the local area, and it's a greenbelt area, which means fields everywhere, and I see the rules in the greenbelt have been broken 3 or 4 times. The planning consultants questioned me, and I had the evidence there. I said, well, how come it's happened here, here, and here within the area? And when we went to see the planning officer to have that brief conversation, he said, as long as it fits in within the environment, we will consider it. In other words, we will get a tick in the box, but we've got to make sure we do. Sorry, that lady?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to get this straight, so that you exchange on 10%.
Yes.
Subject, and you'll complete subject to planning.
Yes, once you have the planning, but you have to detail the planning that you're going to get. So you can't just go, well, I'm going to get planning for a 10-storey block. You have to agree with a party, the people that own the house, I'm going to get planning for this house, so many square foot, and how it looks. Right?
And if you don't get the planning, you lose the 10%?
No, you get That's up to you, but 9 times out of 10 you negotiate to get your deposit back. The money that you lose is your architect's fees, your planning fee, right, and there's ways with planning fees as well. There's ways of saving money with planning fees. Planners absolutely hate this. Is when they ask you for a detailed consent, and they'll say to you, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we'd like to pay £7,500 for a detailed consent, right? You say, no, I want outline, because I might want to change things. Okay, that's £1,500. But they don't ever tell you that. So what you always try and do is outline and miss something out. Saying, we'll do reserved matters because we'll negotiate the garden later. We're not sure how the garden's going to look, so we can't do that. What it means is you do have to go back once you have your planning and you're ready to build, because you've only got an outline consent. But what you've done is saved yourself £5,000. So if you don't, and that could be 6,000, 10,000, depending. But what it means is when you get your planning consent, you've got it in the bag. You then go back and discuss the detailed matters.
And just to pick up as well, another exit here is to refurb and sell for 750. So we buy for 440. We'd refurb about, was it 90, 80? 90k to refurb as a bungalow and then sell for 750. So you mitigate your losses, you probably still make some money.
So the views from this house, so I need to explain this house to you, right?
Let's get back to the map.
When we bought this house and we took the investors along, all they could hear was the M5 motorway, right? And they went, I'm not buying this house, it's in 2 acres and all I can hear is the motorway, right? And then we turned them completely round and said, look out that way and look at your view. And all you can see is the water. It's beautiful, right? So we said, if you were to buy that house without that noise, you'll pay 2.5 million. There's your example down the road. When we built this house, all we want is 1.2, 1.3. Do you think somebody will buy this house? Yes. That was the answer. That's how the deal got done. And that will sell. Because a lot of people will take a view on things. You know, where I live, there's houses down the end of my road where you can hear the motorway. And someone said to me, you know the best thing for a motorway? And I said, no, bamboo. I said, why? Because it whistles. Loads of bamboo, right? You'll still hear it. You'll never get rid of it. But at the end of the day, it's not the worst. Now, I'm not on about if it's a service station on the motorway and you can hear it. That's a different story. I'm on about slight noise. So don't be put off by things, because other people will be put off. With hotels, the reason you break it down is you've got to look, when you sit down and you start off with your appraisal and you're going, right, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to put 30 beds in it, okay? So, because I'm going to put 30 beds in it, you need to work out how much it's going to cost to build per bed, right? And how much per bed is going to cost you. The reason is because you've got management fees. A lot of people forget about the running costs, right? So running costs on a typical bed in a 50-unit scheme is about 2,500 to 2,500 to 2,250. That's all it costs. That can come down if it's not a foreign student. Foreign students have a different attitude. They stay in their rooms 85% all the time. They come from a different climate. So you can walk into the building, and believe me, I've done it many times, and you go, Jesus, what is running off you? And someone comes out and says, the heating working. You look at them and go, what? It's because they're from a different climate, they're not used to it. So your bills are going to be a lot more in that building. But they will let that building off you 51, 52 weeks a year. So your rents are more. So that's why beds, it's all about per bed, what it costs you per bed, what it costs you to buy per bed. So if you buy a building, you go, right, I can get 30 in there, it's cost me 7,000 a bed to buy, right? How much is it going to cost me to refurb? It's going to cost me 20,000 to refurb per bed. What am I going to get per bed rent? I'm going to get 7,000 a year per bed. That's how you work it out. So it takes away, and then when you sell it, you know. So if you're building something that's institutional, you'll sell it on a yield of 6.5% to the market, and that will drive your value. If you're selling it and you're renting it just to anybody and centering it, you'll sell it 10%. So that's what it's all about, and it is a very complicated subject, but if you get it right, it's very profitable. but you need to know what you're doing. And I see it all the time, and I won't mention anything else. I heard someone talking about Leicester here tonight to some, and I know Leicester. I've looked at Leicester and I've studied it. There's an oversupply. And why there's an oversupply in Leicester is because people have built all the way round the outskirts of the city centre. If you can find a site that is within a stone throw of the university, little Billy or little William will go in that building there, because he won't want to go in that building over there. So that building within 5 years will be empty. So that's the only way you ever go into a city is location, location, location. It's driven by that. Because foreign students come in and go, that's where I want to be. If you went to a local student, they'll stay there half the time. They're not as bothered about location, they might stay in a house. But, you know, as we've gone through the recession, the government have invested, our universities have increased, and student accommodation has picked up. And it's going to grow and grow. And I reckon it's got 3 to 5 years. And the interesting thing behind this is the next growth area after students' accommodation is old people, is care, because it's all driven by the 60s and 50s boom, and that's the next drive, because people are living longer, so that's the next. So it's all, everything in property is driven by trends, by fashion, and that's where. I woke up one day, we bought an old chocolate factory, me and an ex-business partner, the two of us, bought it, it was great at the time, planners bought into it, the Lord Mayor of Bristol, who was an architect at the time, was with us, and we went along the journey, and we had this great scheme, 252 residential units, 300,000 square foot commercial, it's going to employ about 100 people, it was great, right? It was a great journey, and we had an end buyer. Then all of a sudden, my son was born, and 3 weeks later, the largest recession that I can ever remember in history hit us. And I woke up to see a little baby in my wife's arms and a site that wasn't worth anything. And the banks wanted to take it off me, everything off me. And again, I explained, I went through a journey and I reacted. Rather than buried my head, my business partner did, I went to the bank, I sat down with them, they didn't want to entertain me, so I went to see them in London. I sat down with them, I took a lawyer with me, and we went through the complete journey on it. And eventually we got them to agree what we were going to do, and we bought our way out. Slowly but surely sold all the sites, broke them all off. The receivers that bought that site off the bank eventually, right, ended up with failed planning permission. Even though we got planning permission, they felt the scheme that we had wasn't viable. They went through the last 7 years, we got failed planning, they've now just got planning again, 5 years later. So, you know, there's some good sort of feeling in that. The good was, that was a pub there, we bought it, there was a tenant in, I went to see the girl that was in there, she said, Mike, I want to buy a house, it's quite straightforward, I'll move out if you give me some money. I said, well, you stay there, I'll get planning, then you move out. That was the deal. Great deal, happened within 4 months, straightforward. Great deal. Those deals happen every now and again. Another deal that we've done, very straightforward, very quick. Got a phone call from someone I know very well, said to me, look Mike, I'm separated with my wife. It's disastrous. She's ran off with somebody else. There's kids involved, tears. He said, I've just walked out of the house, left it. He said, can you just buy it? Can you just take it off my hands? And I remember sat in an area, very undesirable, sat there like this, looking out the window, talking to them, looking to make sure my car was still out there on the pavement. I'd done the deal, basically went in, refurbed it, and sold it straight away. And the type of person I am was, I went back 6 months later, went to see him, and gave him some of himself. Even though I didn't have to, I just felt that it was right to do that. It was very sad, but very profitable. This building here on the end was owned by a fund, very large fund, knew what they were doing. Don't any of you who know Palmer Capital owned that building. It was an office building. There was nothing there, there was no bathroom shop there. It was owned by Palmer Capital. Palmer Capital, Ray Palmer, the guy that heads that up, knows everything about property, been in it all his life, and worked every angle, was sat on that building, got planning for offices. It's opposite Hargreaves Lansdowne, they're Robin's friends, who's on the news. and they couldn't do anything with it. I looked at it and thought, that's a student block. I went and done a deal with them, bought the building for a pension fund, bought the building, got planning for students, made the pension fund an absolute fortune, and myself, and the pension fund didn't want to pay me. And that's why I ended up in the High Courts. I got my money, but it wasn't a nice experience. And that's why I believe, you know, in anything that you do, you have to be fair and do things right. And everything I do is letter of the law. I do everything as an agreement, shake hands at the same time, but you have a management agreement in place and you do it, and you make money, and you make the client money, and everyone walks away and they're happy. And I always say to my clients, whenever we've done whatever the deal is, whether it's a shed to anything else, I always say to them, when we're finished, go and have lunch, discuss it, settle up, move on. And that's how I'd like to leave that. It's been some good experiences and some bad experiences. But the one thing I will say to you about property is it is enjoyable, and it's like a disease. It gets inside you, and you're lying in bed at night and you get up and think, I just remembered what I can do. Or you're driving along with your family and you're driving along in the car and you see something, you think, I could do that with that building. And that's what happens. And that's, you know, you learn. I've been 23 years at property, and I've learned, and I've made a lot of money, and I've lost a lot of money. But I'm here to tell the tale, and I've come back again. And the reason, just so everybody understands, the reason we run the business from my home and not offices is that people that are investing in what we do know where I am. I'm not hiding behind anything. They come and see where we are, so they know, and people feel very comfortable with that, and it's worked very well. And we're not going to be able to do that forever, but it works well. And there's emerging markets, there's different things happening. Ireland, Spain, as the markets recover, there is opportunities, and all these opportunities, you've just got to be prepared to go for it.
Just one last one, the funniest experience. Can you do that one? It's hilarious.
Which one was that? Oh yeah. So we bought a pub in Willenhall. So I don't know if those of you know Willenhall. Willenhall's quite a rough area in the Midlands. We bought it from an auction. So we talked about auctions earlier. We bought it, we got planning, took the team up, went up on a Sunday morning, bought it, got planning, sold it to some guys. And the agreement was with some Irish developers, and the agreement was that we had a big undercroft parking on it. And the guy was arguing with me. I can remember sat over the table, when I say arguing, having a heated discussion over the amount of money he wanted to pay me. And he said to me, in his way, he said to me, if I didn't have to dig out the ground, I'd give you £50,000 more. I said, well, there's nothing I can do. So he agreed to buy it off me. It went to contract, right? Put the demolition company in, and squatters somehow, don't know how they got in, but they got in. And when the guy knocked the building with the digger, these two guys jumped out the window, right? So I went in, stopped it all, cleared, made sure everyone was out, health and safety foremost. Carried on digging. I was driving down the M6 and got a phone call. He said, Mike, you better come back. I said, what now? He said, you have to tell me you killed someone. No, I ain't killed anyone. There's no one in the building. He said, but the machine's disappeared. In the war, they used to block the basements up, right? Because people, after the war, because people used to hide in them. The machine went down into the basement, right, and disappeared. The guy's in the machine, in the basement, right? So I've gone back, all I could see is the arm of the machine. So I thought, I know what I'll do. So I found the guy, I sent it to him. I said, do you remember you said if I dig the basement out? Right? He said, yeah. I said, will you still give me that £50,000? He said, yeah. So all right, I'll dig the basement out. And then 6 months later, done the deal, and he must have been talking to someone around about the area, and he said, he rings me up, he said, no, you know that deal I've done with you? He said, yeah. You should tell me there was a basement, so he didn't ask.
Can I ask, from your experience, if you're looking to get somewhere subject to planning, because I just heard lots of pitfalls about different, you got the option or an option or a license or EDC. What's your preferred sort of route? What would your advice be on that?
Do you know, that's a question that is down to your personality. I'm going to say that, and you're going to look at me and think, why am I saying that? Because it's the type of person you are. I know people that are very patient people, and they put back gardens together and bits and pieces, and they end up with a huge site. It takes them 2 years to do, and then they make a load of money and go, and I think, geez, I wouldn't have the patience to do that. I'm very heavily dyslexic, so I really struggle at school, so my attention span is like that. So I look at something, I see it in pictures, can I make it happen very quickly? Yes, I can. I like that quick in and quick out, right? But I like good margins, and that's the business I do. If I do larger deals, it's normally portfolios, because I'm going to put students in it, and because we're going to sell it to an institution or a fund. That's the only reason I stay in long term. So your answer to your question is, it's down to you. If you're very good, good politician, what I'd say, very good at taking the time and putting things together, then go for them small little to piece them together. But if you're not patient, like me, then go for the deals that you can get in and out very quickly. And there's a lot of them on the high street. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I mean, my main question really is securing that deal. So if you're trying to secure the deal, so you've got a site you're looking at thinking, look, I really like the site, I want to do X, Y, and Z, other people aren't for whatever reason. But you want to test the water with the planning application first, so you want to get that planning application through. Is securing that site so it's yours and not going elsewhere. What's the...
Well, you've got to be very careful, right? Because if you've got an owner, let's say this gentleman here, right? He's got a back garden, and I think put a block of flats in his back garden. As soon as he knows I'm going to put a block of flats in his garden, what's his first reaction? I'm not saying to him, I want more money. Who could blame him? So you've got to be very careful. So you think you've been clever because you've gone in, so you've actually, you've got to be very careful how you go about it. So you've actually, not tell her what, but you've got to go along and say, look, I'm interested in this, and sign an option with them, and don't tell them too much. As soon as you tell them what you're going to do, deadly.
It's the chocolate factory deal that you talked about.
Do you have to keep mentioning
Yeah.
that?
Well, was the factory active when you bought it?
Yes, so we bought it off Elizabeth Shaw. So Elizabeth Shaw used to make the mints, yeah? So we bought it off Elizabeth Shaw.
Right.
And it was the factory was active. There was laws against employment. We knew the guy that was selling it, a guy called Malachi. He was relocating. It was in a great area. It was one of the areas Greenbank and Bristol hadn't been developed. And we thought, yeah, this is good. And it was good. And one thing I didn't tell you, and I'll tell you really quickly, how I did the deal with the bank to get the bank to realise was, when we went for planning, and those of you that don't understand, I'll try and break it down really simple. We agreed 5% affordable housing with a 106 payment, which is a bribe to the government. Okay? That's the deal we were going to do. So we went into the bank and we said to the bank, we've now got planning. And the bank went, great. And I could see the reaction in his eye. I thought, he's going to take this off me. Went back to the planners, had another meeting with my mate Jim from Pegasus. And we sat down and we said, if we did this deal tomorrow and we started building, would you give us less affordable? They said, yeah. So they changed the planning and put a 12-month licence on. Right? We went back to the bank went absolutely mad, but they couldn't take it back off us because they knew we had planning permission with 12 months. By the time they put the receivers into that site of us, it was over. And that's how we've done that deal. So, any other questions?
One more question then. If he's got one more question. Not we'll wrap it up.
Sorry, can you go from commercial to residential? Can you get change of use from commercial?
Yes, you can, depending on what it is, where it is. It all depends on that. So, office buildings at the moment, the government realised that they couldn't build enough houses quick enough, so they had to come up with policies. So one of the policies was they changed the policy on office buildings, so you could get retrospective planning on offices to convert it to residential, right? Where it wasn't protected. But certain councils realised this and protected. So like in Oxford, for argument's sake, the university control that city, right? So planning is really, really difficult. But then in Bristol and in other parts of Bristol, people were buying office buildings and they were converting them into 30 apartments. There was no affordable, no 106 bribes, straight away it was done. So you can do it, depends where it is and what it is.
So can you go from, for example, an old factory that's closed down to...
So your biggest problem there is employment, loss of employment. Even if it's closed, they will say to you, well, somebody might come in tomorrow. So you have to demonstrate. again, that's a very good planning consultant, right? Will tell you, so they'll look at it. And again, you look at the local plan and look at what they want to do. So we just bought a site in Worcester, and it was outside of the local plan, right? But we looked at it and we thought there's a shortage in the local plan. They're never going to meet their target. We bought the site for a client who we do all the student stuff with, and we're going to put 20 houses on it. And we're in for planning. I was reading my emails there earlier, and the plans have come back and looking at it favourably, so we will get it. So it's all about that cat and mouse game, and it's all about looking at it, take advice from a planning consultant. I'm not a planning consultant. I didn't go to university to study that. I went to life, but they will tell you all about planning and the regulations, so always take advice. Thousands. So these people are first-time buyers, right? Okay. So I'm never going to be able to get them into there unless I'm Paul Daniels, right? So I turned around to him and said, I tell you what, the best thing they could do is buy a couple of buy-to-lets in an up-and-coming area, and the money that they get from them in rents, £700, £750 rent for each flat, and then go and rent somewhere in Clifton for £1,500, because the capital value is very different to the rent. They're now living in Clifton, but they still have 2 flats in Speedwell over here, which are rent out. That's the only way I could do it. So you can do things and you can make things happen. You just got to be creative. So I hope I've answered everybody's questions. Lovely to see you. I don't ever do this because I never want anyone to know, but Robin begged me to come. So, thanks very much.